Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Did you miss me? Did you miss me? This is the OverPower Mountain Podcast, and I am your host, Marcel, the greatest OverPower player of all time. Wow, wow, wow. We are 10 days to the first big money modern tournament. Regional. Not tournament, regional. Regional. Hello. I don't know about everybody out there, but I have a little problem lately. I'm walking around almost like a beautiful mind. Like I'm walking around all Russell Crowe out there, just like blank staring at people as I walk by. And I'm literally just like Jane Porter, Van Helsing, Morgan Le Fay. I'm just like putting all these cards and characters in my head, and I'm literally just like saying the most randomest things as I'm walking down the street, doing my regular day to day. So I don't know about a lot of you, but I am in full deck building mode in my mind, and I am enjoying every second of it. This is definitely akin to a different time in Overpower. As I put all legacy thoughts behind me as of right now, and I'm just primarily focusing straight on modern. I'm glad to have everybody here. I was just going on the rant that I'm literally walking around like Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind. I'm just like, going, Sherlock Moriarty. Okay, if you do that, then you could put, does King Arthur work with it? Oh, what about, then there's Merlin, and then I'm just like, but then you have like Tarzan, like Korak stacks, like, I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out, but in a good way. But in a good way. Like, I'm sure all of you are just having the time of your lives. And now that we're actually getting closer to something that, has potential to both set the meta and just to like, create new overpower as we move forward. It's just super exciting times. So I hope all of you are out there Russell Crowe your way through life. Are you not entertained? And just truly enjoying it. But that was just the opening rant. That's just me at the current moment, just going through these modern thoughts, and it's fun. It's so different. I'm no longer sticking to, just the old adages of how I used to build decks or how I even used to just think about the game. I've completely almost like revolutionized my mind in terms of like how I'm moving forward with decks, thoughts, constructions, especially, with this limited ERB world set to start. So let's start the show, right? Um, but of course, exciting times are upon us. And however, before we do dive into real things, that was just my opening rant. You all know I start the new show by ending the old one. Thank you to all who entered some amazing Watson frontline decks in actually the last live video in the comment section. If you're looking to sort of spruce your mind with Watson thoughts, great place to go for all of those. So the deck idea is quite interesting. You had to enter a legal deck idea for Watson, and you got a chance to win this ultra rare Watson foil. Watson foil UR non-foil playmat. Lots of entries, obviously, as per usual. Let's just get right to it. I don't want to stir the show up too much. Congratulations. Oh, I got one. Congratulations. OCAT Overpower. Congratulations, OCAT Overpower. Please do contact me and I will send that mat out to you. Please do remember it'll be signed by the Great One. So you'll always be having me right by your side playing Overpower with you. So congratulations again, OCAT Overpower. I will get you that playmat out exclusive, just for the NAOL tournament. Of course, please contact me on one of the socials and I will get it to you. So with that done, you all know how we actually start the show. And that is, of course, Overpower, overpower, overpower news. We're talking about it. People are getting excited about it. July 19th will be the first OP regional. Linwood, Washington, close to Seattle, for the people trying to get an idea of where it is. $20,000 cash prizes given out. $20,000 in cash prizes plus additional product support as well given out at the event. $10,000, 5 booster boxes, and a trophy for the first regional winner. That's exciting times. It is a $25 entry fee. Contact LRG or check the socials for more info on that. It is the hottest thing, latest thing going on right now. Everybody is excited that big money modern tournaments are back. Of course, all the videos for Peace Bridge Ed Kowalski tourney are up live on this channel, the Overpower Mountain podcast, commentated by myself and a band of merry gentlemen. Thanks again to Zach and Ty, intricate forces in this effort. We will have round one and a special extra game being posted at a slightly later date as well. Of course, keep loaded to the channel. Make sure you're subscribed so that you get that red dot as well. The game seems to be getting tougher and easier at the same time to get. So it's unique as I see all these new postings as, it's available here, it's available here, it's available here. And then it seems like almost like 2-3 days later, it's like, oh, it's sold out here, it's sold out here, it's sold out there. Wow. All I'm saying is as product moves to retailers, it just appears to be selling out fast. I hope you saved a box from your Kickstarter because this might actually be quite sought after soon enough. We will shortly see, and I will keep you updated on that for sure. Hot button news. Hot button news. We're talking things that are being discussed right now on the boards. No answers. We need some hot button news, okay? It is still not official if you can superstring in the new game of Overpower. It was brought up over a month ago on the Discord, brought to get a ruling, to get an explanation, as it is not in any of the rule books, and nothing has been answered. What will the ruling be? With only 10 days left until it truly does matter to have all these rulings ironed out, I think we kind of need that information. Don't you all? And that's the news. Overpower, overpower, overpower news. I like to just take a second after, take a little look at everybody who's in the chat. Again, glad to have you all here. But you don't come here for the news. You can get the news on the socials. You come here for the knowledge. This is an interesting topic that I wanted to approach as we started to creep up to this new modern environment we're all entering. Modern. It's all the rave right now as we all slashed open our ERB packs in such a frantic hurry. So at this point, we have discussed a lot of the characters from the set and a few of the theory ideas as well. So as people start to practice and prepare for the big money modern season, love these tongue twisters, we get closer to the actual first big event. And people are like, what do I play? What do I do? Am I even on the right path heading into this big money modern tournament? Am I even in the right path in this game? And, we have a lot of new players as well. And, old veterans, I truly think will have quite the advantage at the beginning of this game, just with general basic play and idea of card placement, moving war chests forward, and, how to use cards and advantages of moments. You will have quite an advantage. However, I think as the meta starts to slowly creep out, this advantage will start to dwindle and dwindle quite quickly, especially once we start to get proper modern games on camera, and people ultimately can just start watching the games and start to understand interactions a lot better as well. When we started doing legacy events on camera, I think it's truly when the game even started to open up more because people saw ideas, they bounced off that, and they started to create this bigger, meta and concept that we're even still playing in today. With no modern meta yet, though, we are all just sort of theory crafting in my mind still at this point in the game. And again, even with theory craft, you will naturally have an advantage if you've already played the game. Now, you may not think so, or new players may not think so, but what I'm trying to reference is you can still always look at overpower constants, things that have just historically always worked. And even though we do shift into a new style of gameplay, there are still basic conceptual ideas that will always work in the game of Overpower. Before we get deep, though, smash the like button, my friends. You're all here to learn about some Overpower. You all enjoy this content. Take a second, hit that like button. Subscribe if you're not already. It all helps me and the channel as, we're trying to grow and make sure Overpower is a great game as well. So take a second and do that as well. But when I talk about overpower constants, you're like, Marcel, what do you mean? What's this overpower constants? Like, you're talking about history, and then you're like, well, we don't. You just said we don't have history, and it's like we do have overpower history right now that you can sort of pull back on. Now, a lot of players are, not from the '90s, and can't pull off these historic moments in the game like a couple of us older veterans can. But let's just take a moment and see if there was like a historic equivalent in Overpower to the current game and style that's about to be played. And there's a great show on Disney Plus. I actually really thoroughly enjoy it. It's called What If, and I want to have, if there was a what if moment in Overpower, I would almost say it would be right now. And what do I mean by that? It feels almost like there was a time when the first set of Overpower came out, the second set of Overpower came out, very basic game, power card blocking, as you can understand what I'm trying to get at now. Just basic power card blocking, a couple teamworks, a couple big specials. It wasn't much to it. All grid based teams. And then all of a sudden it feels like Mission Control came out. And when Mission Control came out, it released a new strategic level with events. And all of a sudden, you weren't just thinking about basics of the game of just blocking and doing basic overpower maneuvers. You all of a sudden added this strategic idea of events in. And I want you to sort of just put that part into the back of your mind for a second. And because it's a bit of an old OP reference, but when you're at Mission Control, I had all these early characters. Now Mission Control, there's these unique new characters with different specials and these events. And the what if moment is if they just all of a sudden in Mission Control said, oh, we're reprinting all these any heroes, but now we're just dropping in Power Leech. But the game's not ready for that. The game is in a state of like 1 to 6 avoids and, basic like team weird, Morbius negates, like things like that. There was a lot of things, like there wasn't even really 1 to 9s in the game at that point yet. It was a very basic game yet, just with that. But all of a sudden, if you would have just dropped in Power Leech at that moment in the game, oh boy, it would have been probably one of the more unique times of Overpower. It's kind of akin to right now, and what I'm going to say is, back then, right at that moment, you were defending with your power cards was the game. Then events entered and it all changed. The strategy got deeper. With IQ, it did bring in 1 to 9s and the power leech. So what were the big decks back then? Like, what were the decks that were winning back then when the game was more simpler and you only had to like fend off the couple of these big specials? Well, almost all of the decks were grid strong. They were all grid strong. They were all big strength decks, big energy decks. Teams with big specials, and very, very light, if none, on the team defense. Sound familiar? Sound familiar to what's happening right now as you're building these ERB? You're looking for grid synergy, you're looking for a few big specials, and you're looking for a way to block the Reaper. It's just trying to show you that history is there for you to understand and to learn off of. Some of us have those history lessons, and guess what? Now you all do too, from me and my perspective. So, do we have modern history? Do we have anything to go off of as of right now? Yes, we do. Not a lot. Again, we're theory crafting, we're playing online, we're watching games on the Discord, we're trying to figure it all out. We're trying to put as many great ideas into fruition as we can. But we have some history to work off of. And again, it was hard for me to find that history. It was deep. I work hard for all of you. So again, keep smashing that like button. Don't smash it too many times because I think you actually take your like away. So don't hit it twice. But let's start with the history of modern that we have. And I'm going to just say it right now. Grim Reaper, Grim Reaper, Grim Reaper. Fear the Reaper. It seemed to be the theme in the first modern tourney that we had, which was pre the Western Shootout, which is what I would call an actual reference tourney because it was players from different places, so different ideas were starting to come together. A lot of people had just got the cards though, so they were basic initial thoughts. But what did we have? What did we have to work off? What did they play? Of course, you could just go back and watch that whole podcast and, see the little breakdowns of it. But it's not about that. I'm just going to run over things quickly so you understand where the history we have right now, how we can build off that for your own mind as we move forward. The first modern tourney was about Fear the Reaper, as well as Grid Mattered. As we all battle with the threat level totals of the new game and big characters, as well as home-based threat totals, God forbid you try to add one of those to your deck. Good luck. Let's recap the top 4 decks of that tourney very quickly. The winner was Phil Keffer. He played Leonidas, Zorro, Robin Hood with Billy the Kid in reserve. He had Roundtable. Second place was Tyler Bertrand. John Carter, Sun Wukong, the Mummy, Korak in reserve, with Asclepion as the home base. Then you had Corey Sims and Justin Sade. Corey Sims playing Leonidas, Zorro, Sherlock, Watson with Baker Street. And then Justin playing Leonidas, Van Helsing, Robin Hood, Billy the Kid with Roundtable. If you watched that old podcast, you didn't hear me say all the teams as quickly and sporadically as you just heard me say right there. Let's recap some highlights from each of these decks. Each of these decks featured a big OPD that blocked the Reaper. Whether it came from Leonidas or whether it came from Sun Wukong, it was there. And I can assure you that these top tier players held that card placed down on that character until they knew the Reaper was dealt with. And once the Reaper was dealt with, then you can accordingly play the rest of the game. But until they saw it, for sure, that's how they were essentially trying to deal with it, other than the any heroes that were assisting their deck as well. So you can see they all had, ways to deal with the Reaper. They all featured a decent grid line. They all featured big specials and light Team D. History repeats itself. Moving forward, though, again, those are basic thoughts as we initially started to enter the game. These people, again, they just entered the, Western Shootout. They got, a week before, maybe a couple people, a week and a half, if that. I don't even think that long to get these cards in their hands. And yeah, you had the deck lists or you had the cards ahead of time. But the matter of you thinking about it and the matter of you putting cards in play and actually practicing is totally different. So you can see the early thoughts all started to resolve around this historic idea. But we want to move forward. We want to move forward. And I think as we all start to see games online and we all start to like theory craft more and get a little bit more experience, and you start to see, this character works incredibly well. This is actually working here. How am I dealing with the Reaper in this deck? And you're starting to put all these thoughts together. I think people are starting to move forward. And if you follow the boards, you can actually almost even read and see how different areas are starting to evolve. Number sort of two in this aspect as we sort of move forward and you see the evolution of the game. And even in the four decks I just mentioned as well, you see iterations of it. Speed, speed, speed. How fast can you kill me? And how fast can I kill you? Almost seems to be the name of the game at the moment. Again, history repeating itself to a certain degree, as in early Overpower it was all about teamwork, speed, aggression, and then it turned into defensive style decks. Really unique how it's just repeating itself in almost this cyclical way. I can only recommend, and this is the best I could have for you in this situation, to deal with speed, to understand speed. Practice these types of battles. Volley back and forth with your friends when you're playing games. Push it when games don't matter. Push your deck threshold. In this situation, I would never venture 4 or 5. But I got a really good hand, and if my Power Leech hits, or if my Grim Reaper hits, I guarantee to win this game. So does he have that defense? Okay, I'm just going to go 5. Practice the thresholds upon which your deck can push and understand the levels of where it can go, how many cards you could give, things you can do, scenarios. Practice them, especially when it comes to speed. A lot of the issues you come in is, can I throw one more attack or 2 more attacks? Do I have enough defense? What could he possibly throw back at me? Well, find out. Lose that game. It doesn't matter. But the best way for you to understand speed, especially in the game of Overpower, is to play the games where you have speed characters on each deck and you play these volley rounds and you understand it. Because until you actually experience it and play it, you'll never even understand what I'm saying when I say speed. You're just initially going to think, 4 may make an additional attack. Well, you know, as I just mentioned, we have a rule dilemma currently in the game of Overpower. If that rule falls one way, you could have 10 cards in a string. 10. I don't even have 10 cards that I could block. Like think of you had the guy threw 10 cards at you. That'd be insane. How would you deal with that? Deja Thoris would be the greatest character alive after that. That's for sure. Be a void, stop everything right after that. That's Deja Thoris would be the greatest one per deck in the game. But if again, of course, if it goes the old style, you still can't even get like a 5-card string through, with Angry Six. Like you still can do these sort of ideas. Yes, it's extremely unlikely. I do grasp that, as I'm reading some of these comments, but the concept is there, right? And as speed grows, you have to practice it. You have to understand it. Do it yourself. Does speed work for you? Do you like fast plays and understanding that there's little tiny opening moments in battles of Overpower? By the second or third action, you may actually look over and see, oh my God, he just played that 6 that was sitting on, Morgan for that teamwork as fuel. Wow, Morgan really has no defense right now. I could string 2 more hits or 3 hits right through it. You know, Seeing those moments, understanding those moments separates people in this game. And especially in this early game of Overpower, it's going to separate you in these big tournaments. You're investing not only your time, your effort, and in a lot of cases, money to go to these big tournaments. You're not going there truthfully to lose. You want to do the best that you can play to your ability, but if you don't have any practice against what's currently happening in the game, you're just going to get overwhelmed by it. So practice, especially with these concepts that I'm talking to you about right now. The meta seems to be shifting to the speed or aggro style decks. I mean, again, it was just a historical moment and it's all just cyclical, but it's starting to shift this meta idea of speed, aggro, good grid. And how are you going to deal with it with these multi-style attacks? These are the actual questions you have to say to yourself. How is this deck going to defend, that string when it comes? Is just my character dead? Oh, okay. Well, then maybe I shouldn't. Who's going to get attacked first? There's so many questions that you need to ask yourself, and you almost need to build a list of all the questions you want to ask yourself before you even build your decks, or as you build your decks. Like how would this deck deal with the speed of another deck and multi-style attacks, whether it be through teamworks or whether it be through, a Robin Hood, three may make an additional two attacks. Something along those lines. Angry six, three make an additional two attacks. There's chords out there that act almost like a teamwork. How are you going to defend those? What are you going to do in those situations? Are you going to leave your characters open? Like, it's all about figuring out what you're going to do. Is my placing style going to be, that I'm placing a power card on everybody? Am I trying to build in the armory so that I just have this extra defense? Like, there's so many things, which is fun in the new game. But what angle are you approaching? No matter what angle you approach, you still have to ask yourself these questions. Finding team defense in ERB. It's all over-ish. It's all over the set in different ways. There's teammate avoids, whether they be avoid and draws. There's 1 to 4, 1 to 5, 1 to 6, 1 to 7. I mean, even with Korok, you could get to a 1 to 8 avoids. That's a lot of team defense. Different style characters, but they're there. Negates, Drac negates, Merlin negates, Mummy negates, Mina negates. There's a lot of team defense. And I think if you could find the combo of grid, light team defense, big specials, well, those were the decks that were winning back in the day. And those are the decks that seem to be winning at the beginning of this modern. It's probably the deck that's going to be winning this first regional as well, to some degree. You just need to pick your poison of what your team D is. What you think the meta is going to happen. What you think you're going to face when you get to these big tournaments. I'm going to say, and I'm not saying you have to, but you probably need some or more of these in your deck to find balance. The one thing I think people are not fully integrating into the thoughts after Team D. And Patty Crypto, I'm just going to jump in. I love when people sort of throw, random comments, because I love to flex off them sometimes as we're chatting. Patty Crypto, Moriarty can defend any attack against team with intelligence power cards. Correct. I actually looked at Moriarty recently. I'm not trying to tell you who all the characters I'm looking at, and what I'm trying to do is, we creep into this new, modern season. But I was looking at him, and I was like, out of all the team defense, that Moriarty card is not a joke. And 20 points, and you can have a Spider-Man style card, team defense, and 10 to venture. 20 threat level. I mean, again, great call. And again, as you mentioned, I'll block your Reaper with this 1 intellect. Oh, that would hurt. That would sting. So there is Team D. There's tons of Team D. It's a little different-ish than you may have remembered. It's a little bit different, but it's there. And you need to kind of, like I just mentioned, pick your poison to it. But as we move forward, I don't want you to fall into these old traps of just thinking about how old decks used to work and pushing that forward. I think one of the things people are not, and I think it's because we don't have too many of them yet, but one of the things people are not overly paying attention to with their deck, I think, is event deck coordination. In the old game, it almost seemed like, pick this event that doesn't let you play icons, build your deck around not those icons and play a tournament, and hopefully you hit the meta at the right time. Everything hits perfectly. Events are different now. They're not the same. There are some that are way stronger than others. There are some that I think will, be the top two or three, maybe four events that you're going to see, and then the rest will just be accoutrement to them, as a lot of event sets are. But make sure your event works with the synergy of your deck. Not just with your deck, but make sure the event adds something to it. When you can add that level of event to your already decent team, you can now start to build on those strategies and have different win conditions in your deck. Or if you find that an event is not really working for your deck and you're just like, well, I'm just going to put one in to put one in, why? Don't. The new game of Overpower is a lot simpler at this moment in time. I'm not even 100% sure that decks actually need events right now. And breaking your deck back down to a 51 card deck is advantageous to the point that you are going to get to those big one per decks, those important cards in your deck a lot faster. And getting to your big cards faster than your opponent is an advantage in Overpower. Small one, but again, all those little micro things can add up to big advantages. So either pick an event that works incredibly well with your deck and synergizes, or don't even play one at all, because maybe it's actually better just to get to your bigger cards faster. Just all thoughts for you to start pondering as you're building these decks, as you're practicing. What's not working? Why is it not working? Well, I have these 5 fluff cards in this event. Okay, take them all out. Oh my god, this deck is like running like a madman now because, I'm just getting to the meat of my deck so much faster. Trust me, keep doing it, keep building, keep tweaking, keep thinking, and play it differently. All these games you play with your friends, don't necessarily build your perfect tight tournament deck until like you're getting real close and you're really like trying to refine it. Just build concepts, build decks, push the envelope, go for it. Like this is where you're going to find those little tiny combos that you then can add into your, tournament winning final deck and thought. Again, events. Do they work? Do they not work? Play them. Don't play them, but make sure they work for your deck, because I can tell you the deck that I think will win the regionals, their event will matter in the game, or they won't have an event and they will just run you because they're getting to everything faster than you. If you're playing a draw 3 style deck, maybe you don't want those extra cards. Maybe you want 51 cards so you can get to those draw 3s faster. It's just, you have to understand, again, always what I try to teach on the podcast. What is your deck trying to do, and what are you as a player comfortable doing? With all of everything I just said, again, I feel like I'm leading you into old Overpower thinking. And that's what I don't want to do. All those thoughts that I just gave you will work and will transition moving forward because they are constants in Overpower. However, However, do you have the new meta? Do you have the new concept? Yes, these things all work in old Overpower and probably will work generally moving forward. But do you have the new meta? Maybe there's little things that I'm saying that you take through all of these episodes, a la, you know, Andrew Taylor, the Overpower prodigy, you know, watched a lot of the episodes, picked little tiny things, put a lot of the conceptual ideas, and then boom, repackaged it, resold it, and just destroyed them all with Galactus. Which then I even retrospectively looked at, picked the little things I loved out of that, went back, repackaged it, boom. Those are the things you're going to do as we move forward, watching games, moving meta, but also as we're chatting now. These are the things you need to think about. All these little concepts, all these little ideas, they're going to ultimately create the new meta, which you're going to have. Always remember you could have that new idea. You could have that new thought. Draw three decks were big back in the day. It was a big thought conceptually. You know, went out of vogue with the Lambo runs of old. And then a player like Phil Keffer comes out of retirement, all of a sudden plays this draw three deck with the Ray and just dominates the field. Yes, it's a old meta repackaged, but again, took the great idea, refigured it out in a new environment, and brought it to victory. Always remember you could have the new idea. Always remember that. Just because someone's a great old player, they may play an old style of Overpower that's not flexing well into the new game. You could be the next meta creator, Go with your gut. Often your gut is trying to tell you something, and it's often trying to tell you something positively. Before we get to one of the last points, if you have any questions, I know a lot of people sometimes watch these and they have specific questions they want to ask, the great one. And so if you do, throw them in right now. We're going to get to a question portion very shortly. So, if you have any pressing thoughts about decks or anything that you want to talk about the modern environment, throw them right now into the comment section. I will be very much paying attention. But also, again, like and subscribe. Leave a comment after the video's out as well. I love to hear your thoughts as we start to progress into the modern world and what you're thinking. If you want to help the community, a lot of people read the comments as well. So if you're having some of these modern thoughts as well that you think people could, progress and move forward to, I would highly recommend it. I'm going to tell you now, as we're moving forward as well, a lot of people, I don't know if you had a chance to watch the Peace Bridge videos that are on the Overpower Mountain podcast right now. Please watch them afterwards. But one of the big things that came out, and I want everybody to know about it because I thought it was absolutely wildly thought. And a couple different players actually thought of it all at the same time. But one of the things I want you to remember is Event Horizon. As we move forward with Event Horizon, if your opponent is using Event Horizon and they get to go second in the first hand and they draw a duplicate event, so two events in the first hand, they're going second, they get to redraw for both of those events and redraw for the duplicate again because of the mulligan rule. Keep that in mind if you are across the table from Event Horizon. As you enter these modern environments, I truly believe that home bases will be also a major major part to winning decks moving forward. Whether it be Asclepion removing, land that time forgot, hitting someone after they've conceded, or Armory where you can get those additionals, or Training Ground where you can get those additionals through universe cards. The cards, or Baker Street, possibly just, once Baker Street deck starts flowing and starts pulling cards from your hand, it's hard to, come back from something like that. So understand that those home bases, looking across the table, looking at your whole opponent's deck, understanding what their home base is doing, what their team is doing, seeing that, okay, they do have Watson in reserve and they are playing Baker Street, they are +2 to venture total for this battle. These are all the things you have to put into perspective. Keep your focus on your opponent's deck as much as yours, especially when you're sitting across from it. Most important as you move on into this modern environment and big money modern style tournaments. Most important thing that I think I learned through all my seasons of playing Overpower tournaments. And it was a weird one to learn because I think a lot of you can grasp that I'm an incredibly competitive person. And I want to win every tournament I show up to. Period. I want to win every game I sit down to. Period. Which I'm assuming a lot of you are like that too. But I've made some decisions on decks going into tournaments where I made those decisions more based off winning than actually going and enjoying myself. And there were tournaments where I picked this deck because I thought it was the right meta. I didn't really like the idea of it. And sure, I thought it would really win a lot and the right moment, the right time. But I wasn't really having fun playing it. Next thing I know, I'm 2-5 or 4-3, and I missed the playoffs. And now I use this deck. Pick a deck you have fun playing with. If you're not having fun while you're playing the game, you've already lost the whole point of Overpower in my mind. But you would much rather go 0-7 with a deck that's awesome to you and you're learning from each and every game than go 2-5 or 4-3 with some meta deck, missed the playoffs anyways, and you didn't even get to experience anything, learn anything, work with anything. Yes, Howard Bertrand. I don't know if that's rule number one, but yes, you don't change your deck the night before. Sure, you can make tweaks, and maybe this card can go, maybe this card can go in, but you should have your deck essentially, tuned as much as you can. Pick a deck you're gonna have fun with. Find your style, find your deck, practice it, practice it. You see a lot of these players, as we speak of changing their decks right before tournaments, building their decks right before tournaments, they're using their decades of Overpower experience to be able to theory craft and craft a deck that they believe is now the meta, and they're using their spider sense to sort of like understand what the meta is the night before and like trying to build a deck around that idea. I can tell you from personal experience, watching people do it all the time, it works less, or it doesn't work more times than it ever works, and that's for sure. So find your style, find your deck, craft it, play it, experience it. I'm not saying don't play other decks. Have like 2-3 decks that you're constantly going through and just finding different ideas, different concepts that are all working for you. And then maybe even there's like one super deck out of those 3 decks that you can sort of build all 3 of the concepts that you just see continuously working in every game. A lot of these players who are top tier players, they didn't get there just by listening to podcasts and, not working on their game. A lot of the top tier players have been playing since they were 15, 16 years old. And now there's going to be this new crop of players who are coming in, and they're going to be playing since now that they're 15 and 16 and 17 years old, and maybe even for the next 10 years. So experience will win you so many games. It's unbelievable. Take the time, practice, learn your style, because once you have your style and you're comfortable and you know the thresholds you can push yourself on, you'd be shocked how fast you're going to recognize and re-recognize those moments in games and be like, I was in this moment before in a practice game and I went 3 and I absolutely got it, you know? Um so again, like, just practice, no, absolutely not. You listen to this podcast because that's where you're going to get the ideas for the decks that you're going to build, That's where you're going to get the inspiration as you move forward. And most importantly, play. Play. I, I have logged so many hours of overpower. A lot of people are like, oh, you don't play these side games. Now I do. Because guess what? Modern's completely different. I've already lined up, days of overpower playing now with people because I know, sure, yeah, I have all the theory. Yeah, I have all the backup. Yeah, I'm the greatest player in the world. But that doesn't mean I stop. If you don't think I'm trying to work 5 to 10 times harder than you are, then you're wrong. Then you didn't listen to me 5 minutes ago when I say I show up to every tournament trying to win. I play every game trying to win. You know, I'm trying to help you as a player expand yourself to that level. Sure, I'm not telling you, play this character, play that character, play this. That will all, sort itself out when the modern meta starts to evolve. I want you to become the best version of an overpower player you can become. Practice, know the thresholds your decks can get to, and push it inside games. Um, Listen, thanks for watching. Keep thinking overpower, deck building, and getting to the top of the mountain. Looks like you all seem to be ready for Seattle, as I didn't see a plethora of questions there. So, always leave a question in the comments. I always, if you do watch this afterwards and you didn't get it in the live, I'll answer all the questions in the comments afterwards as well, in case something does pop up for you there. This is the Overpower Mountain Podcast, and I am the OP Goat. Have a good night.